school committee chair again for questions that we have for her. Assuming she's gonna be chair again.
It'll be somebody different
Right,
probably, I don't know.
But that type of thing, we can, you know, we can fill in the gaps by talking to the people again, or inviting them to talk to the whole committee, if that's what we need to do or want to do.
This is where we sort of miss the people that are no longer here. I read what the summary is, okay, that's written down here, but
That's right.
the person that did the interviewing would say, oh no, I meant, this is what she said, or this is what.
That's right, we're losing that context.
Yeah. Okay, so, number 3, I really can't,
Take your best shot at it,
I can't tell you anymore right now, I'll go through and do what I can on it. Number 4, do the members of your board generally have experience, knowledge, or skills specifically related to your board's function? And I did yes, no, mixed, not necessarily, which were the answers, and it was predominantly yes. It was like, and my thing was the majority of boards, 86% members have experience, knowledge, and skills related to the board. And it's equally distributed between elected and appointed boards. And that, it was overwhelming.
Do we want to include percentages? That triggered a thought for me. Do we want to include percentages, or people can figure them out on their own?
I ended up doing percentages, I don't know why, maybe we should just be consistent, doesn't matter.
That's what
Because you had numbers and I have, in some places I have percentages because somehow or other, 86% saying they do has impact to me, but saying, I don't know what it would be. Well, I had 11, so saying.
16 to 20.
My concern lies in the fact that we got non-answers in some, you know, does that, you know, for those, how do we summarize that
Yeah,
percentage?
well, that takes out the 4 that were, the 4 that were no, mixed, or not necessarily, didn't make up the 86%.
But this, does it, how do we count for no responses in the percentages?
This no response. Let me see, there's, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look at the numbers again.
Or maybe by not having the housing authority.
Well, that would make things simpler,
Yes,
because we'll have answers to everything then.
yes, I think
But for something that clear cut, I don't, like I have a chart of elected and appointed, percentages, numbers, I mean, I don't know whether we need to go into that kind of detail for something so overwhelmingly in one direction. Question number 5, how important it is for members of your board to have experience, knowledge, or skills specifically related to your board's function? You would think that would be pretty straightforward, but there was very important, moderately important, and not important, and no answer. So get rid of the no answer, it becomes a whole lot. Basically, it turned out that 57% said that it was very important.
so.
And then if you add moderately important into that, you get practically the whole thing.
Did you interview the Board of Library Trustees chair, or is that Libby?
No, I didn't do that. I think
So like
it's
that
okay.
one, it's more important to love the library. Would you
And what did
categorize that as not that important? I mean, that's the type of thing that we have to,
Yeah.
where do we lump that response?
I think that was my no,
Mhm.
not important. Because it's not important to have the skills, you have to love the library, so that was my no. Let me see if that goes through, that's what I think it was.
But it's that type of analysis that we have to perform for each one of the questions. So we go through and just do your best shot and maybe take a note for us to talk about that if
Yeah.
there's
Actually, I
any
counted them
doubts.
as moderately.
Okay.
I made them an M. And people that said not that important but good to have, I called that moderately.
Do you both have this electronically if you want
I
to cut
do
and
have
paste
that
from this?
electronically, yes.
Okay.
I do, yes.
In fact, I only had electronically, I haven't bothered printing that.
my own process is I'm gonna go through each one of these tables and do basically what you did, John, just gonna put it in the spreadsheet. I'm probably gonna put it right on the table, right next to here.
Yeah, well, that's sort of what I
Say-
did. I mean,
Say what, exactly what I think this question means, and then once I go through that task, I'll be able to hopefully have a better understanding.
Mhm.
In terms of your comment about 86% or 56% or something, I'm thinking, I'm leaning less toward a precise number in the report. I'm thinking that we might want to say something like, things like an overwhelming majority,
Mhm.
or a slight majority.
Yeah,
50%.
yeah, 56, yeah.
Use those words rather
Rather
than the
than
56
percentages.
and, right.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, because this isn't scientific.
Yeah, and it's statistically,
Yeah, yeah.
And
It
if
just
people are interested in
confuses.
the actual numbers,
take a look at
they could look it up, or they could put it in parentheses, 8 of
Right.
10 elected officials said
Right.
that whatever. So, all right, does anyone have any particular issues with any of their questions that are gonna pose problems with them for their summaries that we could talk about to iron out?
Well, the one that is the most the one that has the most numbers attached to it, question number 6, basically, tell us where you spend your time, should add up to 100%.
Yeah, I
If
remember
you,
this.
if you actually try to go through and do I was doing percentages, okay? Then, like A comes out 16% and B comes out 14%, they'll come out more even when we get rid of the other person, and C comes through 20%. And when you look at it all together, it's like, wow, because if you do it truly by the numbers, like some people have big hunks of time in certain places, like 80% or 90% of their time. And so I don't know that the overall average,
Is
I don't think
accurate
the
at all,
average
right.
gives you a good picture.
You could have 10 people at 100% and other 10 people at 0%, and that's clearly not 50%.
50%, no. And I think part of that depends upon the nature of your board. Are you on a board that does approvals, which means you meet frequently and you've got a lot of time that you're in front of people? So
Yeah, that's.
Put-
That's a
putting-
hard one to summarize.
putting into a meaningless chart that gives percentages, I don't know, I'll have to look at this and think
Well,
about it.
that one might be best summarized by actually keeping all
This-
the information.
Or just
and let people-
giving this date, this chart here might be what,
That's what I mean,
yeah.
that information summarized with, a short paragraph saying, this is, well, so what do we think this information means? Generally, we don't see any problems with, we don't see any problems with boards spending an inordinate amount of time on administrative tasks.
No. Well,
I mean, that's one of the takeaways
does.
I
The
recall.
Historical Commission spends 40%. Oh, wait a minute, this is 50%.
So let me ask you this, can you take each one of these and make a sentence for each category?
Probably can.
That might be the way to do it.
Yeah.
So
And then include this table as,
include the table for the data for people to
yeah,
look at.
yeah. Okay, so. Well, this is actually very helpful. I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah, I agree.
Do we get these, we now have these in,
This,
they all add to 100, right?
yeah, Libby gave me this corrected last meeting with all the numbers. I don't have it in,
I have an older version, but I remember us spending a little time and I
Yeah.
have some kind
I
of
have this,
corrections
just
here.
don't lose this. Okay, so that's number 6. I have number 7. What's number 7? How often does your board meet? I mean, and basically, most boards meet, the summary would be most boards meet once a month. But some boards meet as few times as twice a year, and sometimes meet 25 times a year. So, I mean, and you can make a little chart that says who does what, and I broke it out by, no, I didn't break it out by elected or appointed, but I could, but I don't know, is that?
I don't know that it,
But the more important part is, do you meet sufficiently to get your work done? And everybody said yes. So however their meeting is what they need to meet.
so that's, overwhelming majority says yes, or all says
All-
yes, all say
Everybody
yes.
says yes.
But
What'd
there's
you
a
get?
there's a lot of people who say as necessary, right? Is that the same
Yes.
thing as saying frequently, that's what you decided?
Well, no, they gave, just about everyone gave me once per month or more as necessary. So I called them once a month, I didn't put them in the more,
Okay,
okay? And for people that, some people gave a range, like 2 to 6 times a year. So I created something that was 3 to 6 times a year and stuck them in that category.
I think that's perfectly fine to create categories if it helps you
Yeah.
summarize
Yeah.
the thing.
Mhm.
Okay.
It may even be, 6 or fewer, 12, more than 12. I mean, that might be enough.
So when we go through questions, what I'm thinking aloud, envisioning is, circulating the actual questions and summaries to everybody. And then, at the end, for our drafting and working purposes, say, this is what I was thinking. That way, remind ourselves what we were thinking as well as being able to explain it to other people. This is what I did to categorize the responses into frequent, infrequent, and never.
Mhm. Mhm.
Up to you, it depends on how you work. I know, looking at my notes like that helped me a couple months.
Mhm. So that's number 7, and I think and then my last one was number 24, which is all textual. It was, what was the question? What advantages or disadvantages do you see from having elected boards versus having appointed boards? The overall, the one thing that came through is everybody thinks we should have both.
Yeah.
Okay, a mix of both.
Yeah.
And I actually wrote a summary, which we were talking about before, where I could put some numbers in the summary. The overall consensus is that Topsfield has the right balance of elected and appointed. Elected are more responsive to citizens, put a number in there. Appointed allows for specific skills and knowledge, put a number in there. A few felt appointed boards lacked diversity and were populated by those who were familiar or liked. Word that maybe a little better, but that's basically what people said. They think we should have both, they think we have the right mix, and there's advantages to each.
That sounds like accurate based on my readings and
Yeah.
interviews.
Yeah, and then there's lots of comments that people made, which I sort of pulled them out, but I don't think we need to put that in the summary particularly.
Not all of them. If you think there's some that are, if you think there's a theme for some of the outlier comments, if like 2 or more
Yeah.
people said the same thing, I think that merits a note.
Mhm.
If there's something that is very strongly, there was a strong reaction, like, someone's pounding the table saying, I absolutely think we need X, I
Mhm.
think that might merit a note.
Mhm.
Use your judgment.
Okay. All right, so.
I don't think we have anything that rises to that level, though.
No,
Think about it.
there weren't, and if someone I was interviewing was pounding the table, I'd know that, but if someone you were interviewing pounded the table, I mean, you wouldn't have, none of us wrote down the intent, I don't think none of us wrote down the intensity with which they said things.
In brackets next to the note, pounding table.
Yeah.
Do you wanna? No? Okay. So, John, do you wanna talk about any of your questions, or would you prefer to do some analysis first?
No, I think having gone through this, I'm
But like, anything like you, question 15, where you thought the question was not so
Oh.
artfully worded.
well, what we had noted, notes I just took when we were speaking about it a little while ago was that generally not an issue, occasionally need to work on an issue or something like that. It's like, I think it'll be okay. I think I'll be able to say something which says, generally not an issue, as issues rise, the committees handle it. So, you know, in other words, it's not a systemic problem that needs to be fixed. It's, of course, there's gonna be bumps in the road, no matter, you know, when people imagine.
We, for my questions, we talked pretty much at length at one meeting about question 26, which was, you know, what are the responses being regarding the town administrator? You know, 26 has its flaws as a question as well. You know, it was either or, it wasn't necessarily an either or question, it was what advantage do you see if we're more centrally organized with the board of selectmen or town administrator? It doesn't really say in the responses whether they're talking about centrally administrated the selectmen or the town administrator. But my recollection was we went through, and I've got in my notes here a lot of not applicals, and you know, we thought that some of them clearly were strong town administrators. I don't, for the most part, my recollection was that most of them, majority, a slight majority, were that the town doesn't need to centralize more. And then there were a few comments on strong town administrators. The numbers I have were 12, 4, and 3 with 2 questions, so 19. I don't know which questions were. One was the Conservation Commission. And that one basically says the functions and authority of the Conservation Commission were transferred to the selectman or town administrator would be highly detrimental to the protection of the environment and ability to administer the Wetlands Protection Act and bylaw, preservation of open space as well, as they have any notifications. I see no advantage. So
I think it
I
just,
think that's basically.
just put it in the no advantage.
The no advantage, I think that's right. And the reason why I ask is because I still have a question mark there. I don't know who interviewed the Concom agent, or chair. Was it you or
No.
either of you?
Might
Might have been Dave, maybe,
Could be
I don't
Tom.
know. All right. And the other one was planning board, which was you, but as I read that again, I'm pretty sure that's not in favor of it, centralizing.
Yeah.
Basically, I read that one as not centralizing unless we don't have volunteers.
That's basically it.
So I may have questions about 25, but otherwise, the other questions I have, when I looked at them, I think I should be able to summarize and share a summary with you that makes sense. 25, I'll be in particular asking for some input. Actually, 25, is that the one I just got tonight?
Oh, yeah, we don't want.
Yes, you took 10 and 25 tonight. And Bert took 8 and 9, and I took 11 and 12.
Let me take a quick look at 8 and 9.
Yes, any questions? Take a look at 8 and 9, see if you have any questions.
Well, 8's probably pretty straightforward. It's administrative tasks. That's probably going to be pretty straightforward.
It is very straightforward. There's lots of yeses and nos.
Yeah, and that's. And then 9 is, do you generally reach decision as a board? How do you reach decisions? So I could probably come up with a few things.
I
We
think
have
you
legal
break that into
requirements,
categories.
past practices, personal experience, education, or all of the above.
That might be one of the ones where you don't have everything out to 20. Like, you know, 8 boards cited, past practice, 5 boards cited, you know,
Mhm.
legal
Yeah,
requirements,
yeah,
that type
yeah,
of thing.
Yeah.
10. I'll take a hint to summarize, but those seem, initial glance seem that they're, a little bit all over the map. Board of Assessors, was that Libby? If you guys recall? There's a 0 on this chart for Board of Assessors. It just says, how you obtain data for decisions, 0. I I'll have to go back and look at the notes for that. But that might not be what Libby's board is, maybe it's a typo. I can categorize 25. Dave, do you have questions about the ones that you got tonight, or do you want to just take a look at them
Me?
and figure it out?
John? No, I haven't even looked at them.
Well, there's lots of yeses under 11, I don't think that should be too much trouble.
Good.
And 10,
That was his.
Did I just call you Dave?
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
I've been called worse.
I'm a little tired.
oh, so you're 11 and 12?
I'm doing 11 and 12.
I don't know, my summaries here have lots of yeses and nos, so when I looked it over.
Yeah, Libby did assessors. Roberta, you didn't do Conscom? You didn't do Cheryl Children?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Jolly? I don't know.
What was the question from her or about her? Oh, it was you had one, didn't you?
It was question 26 where I had a questionnaire, but I think I decided it was going to be summarized as a no, as in not, we don't need to centralize.
I see no advantage. Yeah.
I don't recall why I had a question about that. I think that was.
Well, it was unusual. It was just outside the norm, because most of them skewed toward, wait a minute. This is 25. Most of them skewed toward what? Just having, oh, it's a balance. They see the value of it. They see the advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
No.
And she was
No particular advantage or disadvantages for centralization
Right.
is, I think, a category for that question, but I just need to go look at them all again. I just recall that we had talked about that one for a while, when we went an hour, I want to say, question 26.
Oh, I
No.
don't even remember it.
So,
That one I don't know.
Maybe that was the
We-
day I
we-
wasn't, maybe it was the day I wasn't here.
it could be, we talked about that one for a while, so that's why I asked that one, but I'm just gonna take my hand and summarize it all else.
So you can,
Did you wanna look at 11 at all?
yeah, what's the 11?
11 was, does your board have sufficient administrators to help your board with, that's a yes or no?
That's an
Everybody's,
easy one.
everybody's gonna say you were fine.
With the exception of, I think, one person.
12, was 12 already on this one before? No. 12 was the other one. Does your board interact with and or receive any directives or suggestions for improvements from the selectman or town administrator? If yes, please describe in general terms and state how often.
It's mostly no's.
Mostly no's, not usually, because they just don't interact because they're
They're all
They're
in
specific.
silos.
tasks,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that you might have a few categories for that, second, number 12, but I don't think it's gonna be a hard one. Be interesting to see if we have to go back and ask questions and the chairs have changed.
Well, if the chair was someone who was already on the board, then maybe they'll feel the same way, but if the chair is somebody,
I'm inclined to go back and ask questions of the original chair to supplement their original answers.
well, I think, yeah, I don't think you can introduce a new person
Too hard.
answering.
Be too hard.
Mhm.
Which is another limiting factor in our report. This is a snapshot of the current chairs in
Mhm.
fiscal year 2019.
Exactly.
That's right.
Okay, do we wanna move on from the summary discussion? Does anyone have anything else on the summaries?
No.
We talked about future meetings. I do have a call into the MMA. I have not heard back from them yet. I'm not really sure what I'm gonna get from them. Because I think the first question they're gonna ask is, well, what do you want? And I don't know what we want. And once we find out what we want, I think legally, we have all our options available to us through a special act or through a town charter, if that's what we want to do. So I'm not really sure what the MMA is gonna be able to tell us that we can't really get from their materials online, but I thought it would be worth a discussion with them. So we're meeting on the 4th?
We can do that at 7 o'clock.
PM. John, I know that you've been doing a fantastic job helping with the notes, but I think for the 4th, rather than working on the minutes, let's work on the summaries to see what we can bang out next week on the summaries, so we're prioritize that way. Just get done what we can. So-
Well, I think our notes, our minutes of the meeting are as we worked on the summaries.
That's true.
Well, it won't take me long to write this up. That's
Okay,
good.
that's okay.
I meant,
I know.
you mean putting
Add-
together this week's?
Putting this week's will be trivial, and then next week I may focus more on attending to the conversation and less on documenting
Yes,
the
yes, yes.
conversation.
I did, something was just going through my head, but I think it went out.
Happens to me all the time.
Oh, I know what it was. This particular spreadsheet, which is the summary of all of these, does somebody have that in hard copy?
I have that. John, did you create
That thing?
This thing,
You mean, do I have that in electronic copy?
that's what I meant, not hard copy.
Yes, of course, I do.
Can you text that to me or email it to me? So I don't have to recreate it?
Is there a date on that by any chance? Looks like
Yeah,
there isn't.
4/23,
4/23?
yeah, 2019.
And that was for question 6?
Question 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have it. Though the version I have electronically isn't,
It's not correct,
it's not correct.
but I can go in and I can change it, then
Yeah.
I just don't have to create the whole thing all
Yeah,
over
sure.
again.
That's right.
Does anyone have any other issues related to the summaries, questions, investigating town governance that they bring up? Anything else that people want to bring up generally?
No. Let us know if you hear anything from the selectmen.
I will. So what I'll do is, I will send a letter to the selectmen, and I will CC both of you. And once I hear from them, I'll let you guys know when that will be, if they're meeting, in case you're interested in attending. And maybe I might have to attend that meeting, I guess, Dick. If the selectmen are gonna meet on the 3rd or the 17th to discuss the GRC, I probably have to attend in case they have questions, I assume. Should I plan on attending that meeting?
Probably would be good.
If you're on the agenda, yeah.
All right. Anything else for anybody? Dave, you had a question earlier, I don't know if you remember, if it's still pertinent, I just try to keep the meeting going.
No, no, sorry, I forgot the relevance of it already, so it wasn't critical.
Anyone want to make the best motion of the night?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Well, I feel we had a very productive meeting.